Is it possible to be a meat-eating environmentalist?
I love the environment, but I don't love the environment that much.
So you think the taste of something is worth the destruction it causes?
Yeah.
Avoiding meat and dairy is the biggest way to reduce your environmental impact on the planet.
Maybe choosing to skip the meat could make an impact.
In June 2018, the United Nations Intergovernmental Panel on Climate Change, the IPCC, released a landmark report.
The Intergovernmental Panel on Climate Change released its new report, which confirms the need to limit global warming to well below 2 degrees centigrade and pursuing efforts towards limiting it below 1.5 degrees centigrade.
The world had 12 years to limit climate change catastrophe. According to the world's leading scientists, governments must work to limit global warming temperatures to 1.5 degrees Celsius. Even half a degree more could worsen the risk of droughts, rising sea levels, extreme heat, food insecurity, and poverty for hundreds of millions of people across the world.
The report clearly states that the world has already warmed by 1 degree centigrade due to human activity, and as a result, climate change is already affecting people, ecosystems, and livelihoods around the world.
Insects, which are vital for crop pollination in healthy ecosystems, would be twice as likely to lose their habitat at 2 degrees Celsius. According to one study, published in the Proceedings of the National Academy of Sciences, the 6th mass extinction is already underway. A biological annihilation of wildlife over recent decades is caused by humans and threatens the survival of civilization. All signs point to ever more powerful assaults on biodiversity in the next 2 decades, painting a dismal picture of the future of life, including human life, said the report. In order to prevent major environmental disaster, the level of human-caused carbon dioxide emissions would need to drop a staggering 45% from 2010 levels by 2030, finally reaching a net zero by 2050.
A carbon-neutral future is the only way we will inherit a planet capable of sustaining life on Earth as we know it.
The report called for unprecedented changes to all aspects of society to prevent warming beyond this level.
We are currently working on an IPCC special report on climate change and land, which will include the idea of food systems as a whole, including the question of dietary changes on the demand side. And what is very clear there is that there are lots of reasons other than climate change for shifting diets.
At this point in history, atmospheric carbon dioxide, a type of greenhouse gas, is at the highest level ever recorded. The majority of greenhouse gas emissions are caused by human activity, including burning fossil fuels, agriculture, and landfills.
Reality has a way of, hitting you in the nose if you're not paying attention. And I think that the public is starting to realize the science, in part because it's indisputable.
While we can all take steps to reduce our individual carbon footprint, such as taking public transportation, opting for local produce, and buying fewer things, does it make sense for an environmentalist to eat meat? Carbon emissions from animal agriculture. According to the Food and Agriculture Organization of the United Nations, the global livestock industries account for 7.1 gigatons of carbon dioxide equivalent per year, representing 14.5% of all human-caused greenhouse gas emissions. Cattle raised for meat and dairy, as well as manure, are responsible for the majority of this, representing 65% of livestock emissions. This is divided between feed production and processing, and enteric fermentation, the digestive process in cattle. According to the FAO, this accounts for up to 45% of total emissions.
So the animals that can eat grass have very unusual stomachs that have these bacteria that are methanogenic in there, and so they leak natural gas both out the front and the back. And so people have said, well, let's change the hay or throw some things in there. And nobody knows how to get rid of
no one knows how to get cows to stop farting.
Exactly, or burping.
Manure storage and processing represents 10% of emissions, and the remainder can be attributed to the processing and transportation of animal products. In terms of animal products, beef and milk cattle are responsible for the most emissions, followed by pig meat, 9%, chicken meat and eggs, 8%, buffalo milk and meat, 8%, and small ruminant milk and meat, 6%. The remaining emissions come from other poultry species and non-edible products.
We know that our dietary choices make a big impact. So, for example, if we talk about high greenhouse gas emissions diets, those are associated with meat consumption. We know that, for example, beef and lamb tend to be higher in greenhouse gas emissions due to the way that livestock is produced.
Marine fisheries are typically excluded from food production emissions assessments, but they have an impact too. According to a 2018 study published in the journal Nature Climate Change, greenhouse gas emissions from the global fishing industry grew by 28% between 1990 and 2011. But there has been little increase in production. The increase comes from crustacean fisheries, which represent only 6% of all marine life caught, but are responsible for more than 1/5 of all emissions due to the use of fuel-powered fishing vessels. Deforestation and land use. How much land does animal agriculture occupy? According to the FAO, 26% of the planet's ice-free land is dedicated to livestock, and 33% of cropland is dedicated to growing animal feed. The global demand for meat has quadrupled over the past 50 years, and we now produce about 320 million tons annually. Demand is expected to increase by 73% by the year 2050. Raising animals for meat is land-intensive. Each year, 13 billion hectares of forest are cleared to make room for animals or animal feed production. This can be seen in the Amazon rainforest, where areas equating to more than 1.5 soccer fields are being destroyed every minute of every day.
The Amazon is home to millions of species, and the biggest threat to the rainforest itself is this one.
The situation here is completely backward. This area should never have come under cultivation. It's under permanent nature conservation. There shouldn't be any cattle here, and it should never have been deforested.
Clearing land also contributes to water availability, soil fertility, biodiversity, and climate change.
Our main argument in favor of reforestation is the protection of water sources. What use is a cattle ranch if you have no water on your land? That's a strong argument to win them over.
But we need not dedicate land to raising animals. Globally, there is enough cropland to feed 9 billion in 2050 if the 40% of all crops grown for animals were used for human consumption instead. Water use. Animal agriculture uses around 1/3 of the world's fresh water, while 700 million people suffer from water scarcity. By 2025, that number is expected to reach 1.8 billion. According to a study published by the UNESCO IHE Institute for Water Education, global animal production requires about 2,422 cubic gigameters of water annually. Beef cattle use up 1/3 of this, and dairy cows require another 19%.
But what about wasted water? It takes nearly 2,000 gallons to produce 1 pound of beef. Compare that to broccoli and cauliflower. The lowly legumes require just 34 gallons a pound.
Most of the total water footprint used by animal agriculture is used to grow feed crops. Ocean dead zones and acidification. The world's oceans suffer because of animal agriculture as well. Runoff from animal agriculture like manure and fertilizer has been linked to ocean dead zones, oxygen-depleted hypoxic areas of the ocean where little or no life can survive.
But the one that contributes the most or puts in the largest portion of the load is agricultural runoff.
The bacteria can suck all the oxygen out of the water, creating a dead zone where nothing can grow, which sets up a chain reaction that's devastating for anything living in or near the water. But the real problem is the toxins some types of blooms can create, which are poisonous and even deadly for fish, wildlife, humans, and pets.
Ocean dead zones have roughly doubled each decade since the 1960s. Today, there are around 400 dead zones in the world. The largest is a Florida-sized area in the Arabian Sea. The second largest is in the Gulf of Mexico and is on average 6,500 square miles in size. When excess nutrients from manure and fertilizer enter the oceans, they spark an algal explosion. Phytoplankton, a microscopic algae that loves nutrients like nitrogen and phosphorus, float near the water surface, absorbing the sunlight. Blooms consisting of phytoplankton can be seen via satellite. Zooplankton consume the phytoplankton, which are then eaten by small fish, The rapid increase in algae leads to higher levels of animal waste in the water, which falls to the ocean floor. The bacterial decomposition uses up oxygen, which is vital to healthy ocean ecosystems. This may be exacerbated by warming temperatures. Warm water carries less oxygen than cool water. A January 2019 report published in the journal Science found that the oceans are warming 40% faster than previously thought. As oxygen depletes, smaller animals like snails, crabs, and fish will move away, making it harder for larger fish to find food. Immobile creatures die off. Ocean acidification, the ongoing decrease in the water's pH caused by uptake of carbon dioxide from the atmosphere, is another consequence of climate change. Ocean acidification has been linked to the bleaching of Florida's coral reefs. Alec Wang, professor of marine chemistry at the Woods Hole Oceanographic Institute, says the ocean's pH levels are expected to double by the end of the century. This will kill off marine life, including oysters, corals, and plankton, drastically affecting the food chain. But what about... If you were to Google tips for being more eco-friendly, you would probably find tips like cutting back on plastic, taking shorter showers, or buying grass-fed beef. But cutting out animal products makes a much bigger impact. On average, it takes 1,800 gallons of water to produce 1 pound of meat. Using that, you could take 104 showers or do 60 loads of laundry.
Meat takes an enormous toll on natural resources in the environment.
Under the current system, it's not sustainable. It has to change.
Grass-fed beef is framed as more sustainable than conventional beef, but according to a study published in the journal Environmental Research Letters, if the US wanted to switch to a 100% grass-fed beef system, it would require a 33% increase in the national cattle herd, and current pasture land can only support 27% of the current beef supply. The research concludes that only reductions in beef consumption can guarantee reductions in the environmental impact of US food systems. What about small family farms? While they do exist, it's only in very small numbers. An estimated 99% of all animal products are sourced from factory farms.
Open wounds, pressure sores, infections, bleeding gums from biting the bars so much, and these animals aren't even being cared for with individualized veterinary attention.
Even if you avoid beef and go for pork, chicken, lamb, or even a vegetarian diet, you're not saving as much water as you could by eating vegan. Animal products have a much larger carbon footprint compared to crops.
Some diets require more land and water and lead to higher emissions than others. For example, diets that are high in grains, nuts and vegetables have a lower carbon footprint than those that are high in meat, and they lead to better health outcomes.
As for sustainable seafood, the labeling can be deceptive. The Marine Stewardship Council is known for its blue label, which indicates that a fishery has met certain sustainability standards. But investigations into MSC certified labels have revealed that the certified sustainable label can be deceptive because it applies to regions. A fishery may use ocean-friendly fishing methods in one area and trawling in another. Trawling is a practice notorious for causing bycatch, a term that describes when unintended species are captured along with the target fish. The MSC has even certified some fisheries that work in regions where populations are at risk.
What we've been trying to do is prove scientifically and by visual the scale of the illegal fishing in this area, which we know has been going on for a long time.
Some might argue that they do their part by cutting down on carbon emissions from transportation, like buying an electric car, carpooling, cycling, or using public transit. But changing the way we eat is more effective. The sustainability of a plant-based diet. How sustainable is a plant-based diet? Animal products generally have a larger footprint compared to crops. For example, the average water footprint per calorie of beef is 20 times larger than that of cereals and starchy roots, and 6 times larger than pulses. Beef creates up to 105 kilograms of greenhouse gases to make 100 grams of meat, while tofu produces less than 3.5 kilograms to make the same amount of food. The Beyond Burger, a plant-based patty made from pea protein.
That patty is 100% plant-based protein.
generates 90% less greenhouse gas emissions and requires 46% less energy, 99% less water, and 93% less land compared to a beef patty. The water footprint per gram of protein from milk, eggs, and chicken is 1.5 times larger than pulses. According to an Oxford University study, producing 1 glass of cow's milk has at least 3 times the environmental impact of plant-based milk. In terms of carbon footprints, a San Francisco-based food tech company, Just, makes a vegan egg using mung beans. It uses 77% less surface and groundwater and emits 40% fewer carbon emissions compared to conventional eggs.
I eat eggs every day. I didn't even notice.
Yeah.
Wow.
Wow, it tastes
That's
like
good.
real, yeah. Tastes and feels like real egg.
While many experts have acknowledged that some parts of the world still rely on animal agriculture, in the West, plant-based ingredients are readily available. While every step toward reducing your carbon footprint is a good one, a 2018 Oxford study found that adopting a plant-based diet is the single biggest way to reduce your carbon footprint. With 10 years left to make a change before global warming is past the point of no return, why not start with your plate? That's it for today. Are you an environmentalist? Let us know in the comments below. As always, remember to subscribe and hit the notification bell. New videos every Tuesday and Friday.